Thank you for tuning in to Wednesday Inspirational Book Lounge. I'm your host, Anna Murby. Today we welcome back Pastor Hubert Carl as he reads to us the well-known Green Leaf in Drought Time, a harrowing missionary story of a family who gave up everything to do pioneering missions work in inland China. Enjoy the show.
Green Leaf in Drought by Isabel Kuhn, published by China Inland Mission, 1959. Read by Hubert Carl. I thought I'd add some background information on this book. The book started in mid-1950 and ended in mid-1953. What's not in the book, and is never mentioned, is that the Korean War was at exactly the same time. It started in June of 1950 and ended in July 1953. The reason that the communists hated the Matthews so much was not only that they were Christians and believed in God, but the Americans and the Australians were fighting them in the Korean War. He was Australian and she was American. Chapter 7. The Monthly Application. There was never any time of day or night when Arthur could be sure the communist officials would condescend to receive him. Each month he had to write in detail an estimate of what they would need to spend on fuel, clothes, and food, etc. They always figured that without luxuries, 1 million of the local inflationary currency, about $45 US a month, was needed for the three of them, because the coal alone cost 2/3 of that. Felix never once allowed Arthur that much, and gradually he began to diminish what he did condescend to grant. But as the middle of each month drew near, Arthur would make out his estimate slip and proceed to the police station. Sometimes he would go early to see if he could get an inkling as to what time the officials would likely to see him. It was the sentry at the door who would hold him up first. Although everyone in the small town had heard of the white man's predicament and knew why he must present himself to the police station, the police themselves pretended to be in perpetual ignorance of the reason. "What are you doing here?" the sentry might shout. "I want to submit my estimate sheet for the police ratification," Arthur would humbly answer. "He hasn't time now. Come back again," might be the rejoinder. Sometimes the sentry would simply grab the estimate sheet and stuff it in his own pocket. That was perhaps the worst of all. A nearly bare cupboard was frequently behind Arthur, or an empty coal bin in the winter. More often than not, he was told to wait outside in all kinds of weather, snow, slush, rain, as well as sunny skies. He had to hang around the entrance hour after hour, with the passers-by staring at him. To laugh at the foreigner stood you in good stead with the government, so there were those who would like to make fun of him. All this he must endure, and at the end of the day he was told to come back again. The second day, when he arrived, he was told the official was sick. He might wait until the next weekend. On Monday, he went back, waited for hours, and no one paid any attention. Went home for a meal and came back. At length, the sentry had a message for him. "We've got to do some investigating. Wait until we contact you." When at length an amount was granted, the slip stamped and given to him, Arthur took it to the bank and was handed the amount written down. There was never any trouble at the bank. It is of slight interest to tell that the Chinese bank had on its walls huge pictures of Russian officials completely encircling it, and not one Chinese face among them, but glimpses through the letters may help us to see the situation. March 9th, 1952. Pray for Roberta's husband, Clarence Pretty, in sinning, whose name must be disguised in letters. Most often they call him Seepy, S-E-E-P-Y, Charles Pretty. We wait for later news and have cake and cookies ready to send if he is not on compulsory bread and water, meaning being in prison. Having been blessed ourselves with timely help, we thought Mother Hubbard was getting down on her uppers and took early precautions, a scrap of paper and a small walk every day to back it up. And now, for some reason, our lucre turns up. March 15th, 1952. We have enough for a little while, and I bought flour yesterday, way ahead of things in case we land in another Zephora. Spring is our hardest time, no potatoes, etc., until the new crops come in. It is no use thinking about we'd go bats if we did. March 31st, 1952. Morale has had another boost with our circular of the 7th just in. Our mail is always ahead of CP's, so I'll post to him this afternoon and enclose yours and a home letter too. He had a week to wait before the time due to make his monthly application for funds and was about out of bread. Our cake and cookies arrived in time, not only to help his batching, but also his starvation end-of-month diet. We had a heart-warmer yesterday, a package with a pair of shoes, odds and ends of dresses, petticoats that can be made over for Lila. This was slipped to them by the Russian Christian who had brought the shoes from Arthur the previous year and began giving other things for Wilda. Arthur continues, April 6, 1952. CP's humble cooperators, his little member puts him in Nehemiah's book, chapter 6, verse 6, with a Gashmu at his heels. Guess he needs prayer badly, and when it comes our turn, add amen. Yesterday I received a slip from the bank, releasing through my energetic representation. Haven't been able to verify. It is necessary to have a chop on it, and so far have drawn a blank. If they're releasing lucre for us, they can't be expecting us to move in a hurry. So we are getting pots out ready to plant lettuce seedlings and beetroot with the 2-year-old seed. April 15th, 1952. RMC arrived. No lucre since the end of January, and like Pharaoh's second batch of kine. RMC is Dr. Robert N. Clark. He was originally at the Hualong station, but when his money ran out, he was left 3 days without food and then sent to Clarence Pretty at Sinning, and Pretty was able to support him. But we were all glad that the two men were together. Arthur continues, amazing how we plan everything so carefully, and then God walks sovereignly right through the lot with something far better. Our leaf should not wither, for we are his planting, and planting includes a lot of preparation of site, with a view to constant supply of water. It means selection of the tree, its type, its maturity, etc. Our planting, besides these waters, means that for our leaf to wither, there must be a denial of us of the supply source. May this never be true of us. May 28, 1952. Wilda needs to go soon to the dentist, but the local stinginess means that we will have to walk warily. The three of us, only 3/4 of what the two of them get, Dr. Clark and Mr. Preedy, and we are in pretty expensive spot. The estimate list of necessity grows. Lila needs shoes. Wilda dentistry. I need a shirt or two. July 18th, 1952. My application last Monday only produced $700,000, which is $31.50 U.S. From the communist treatment of Dr. Clark, they concluded that the regime would not be giving them their exit permits as long as they had any money left. This proved to be true. September 10th, 1952. I could get quite a sinking feeling if I stopped to think of next weekend, when his September application for funds was due. But the Lord was so good to us last time. All we had to do was pay my price. Many are praying and greasing the runways. But after the September application, Arthur writes, we can surely feel for Moses during the preliminaries of the Exodus. I've every sympathy for his parting fling at the end. Exodus chapter 11, verse 8. And he went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. The plagues must have seemed a painfully slow way of staging deliverance. But if Israel, with all they had seen of God's wonders, could descend to such depths of failure, what would they have been like if the process of revelation of the might of God had been simplified or shortened? So it must be with us. Our current skirmish opened on Monday the 15th and closed on Saturday the 20th. By the time it was over, I was shaking almost as badly as I was after the 2.5 hours in the dentist bench last December. First off, I was sent home. Next day, told to return 2 days later. Then the following morning, I sat outside the ground, consistently refusing the suggestions to be off. At last, when I was beginning to weaken, the required came to hand, and I was able to empty the till. This was their last bit of money of the local bank. Not a very wonderful reward for all the humble pie that I had to eat. Our guess, and yours too, no doubt, is that we are popular enough to be kept till the Matthews household is really hungry. The worst part of these experiences, which were plentifully sprinkled with the Chinese curses, was the suspense and tension. Hanging around the doorstep like a beggar in all sorts of weather was bad enough. To do so for hours and then go home empty-handed, wondering if you slipped up in discretion somewhere, and that got on the nerves. But God was teaching his children, as he taught his own son, made perfect through suffering, who learned how to become the lamb that opened not his mouth when he was led to the slaughter. In this same letter, Arthur writes, John says, I found myself in the isle which is called Patmos. Not one jot of credit does he give to the might of Rome, and not one mention escapes him of what he must have endured before eventually finding himself there. He was found there as Philip was found at Azotus, and the Matthews family is found here. The means, circumstances, decisions that led to his finding himself there is unimportant. Faith discerns even behind the beast the hand of God. For second causes make good disguises and baffle any eye but the eye of faith. So to enlarge on why and wherefore, to blame himself or his charges, to weigh past decisions for or against, I guess you've heard little else over the past, is not on John's mind. Nor does he allow wishful sightings to occupy his thoughts. More ideal field for such thoughts could hardly be found. So there's great deal of comfort for us in John's early verse in the Revelation. On November, Wilder writes, we don't have any more beans, money, than last month, but we do still have some vegetables, fuel, and flour. Not much, but what difference between little and nothing? From Arthur came a letter that was torn and words missing, showing it had been mutilated by the censor. Discernible are Wilda to visit longer. Money still tighter than ever. Have made 4 visits and draw blanks. Pray. Paul Garrett has become a new friend. I keep going over and over some of his verses, and today's is, although to make God falter, the power of hell combined, one jot they cannot alter of his all-wise design, all projects and volition of his eternal mind, despite all opposition, their due fulfillment find. All faithless murmurs leaving, bid them at last good night. No more they vex soul grieving, because things seem not right. Wisely his scepter wielding, God sits in the regal state, no power to mortals yielding, events to regulate. Arthur ends with this meditation. The Lord sometimes has to show us not only the power of one against us, but also the weakness of our own hearts. His battles are not won through strength and prowess, but through weakness, thoroughly weakened, that refuses to do anything at all for itself, but to trust in his faithfulness, even when trust seems folly.
Thank you again for joining Wednesday Inspirational Book Lounge. Stay tuned for another installment next week of Green Leaf in Drought Time.